Hi guys, this is Rachel Kirkland, the Modern Shaman, and thanks for joining me. This is question and answer time with the Modern Shaman, me. So welcome. I am going to read a question that someone sent in via my website, which is just themodernshaman.net, and on there's a form that you can fill out if you want to send me questions or you have follow-up questions to previous videos, anything like that. So here's the question for today. Rachel. Oh, that's right. This is more of a topic. She said, Rachel, can you talk more about how you can block your psychic energy and how you had that stroke? You mentioned it previously in a live feed, and I wish you could talk about it more. Fun. Personal stories. Yeah, and if you have never been a part of those live feeds on Sundays at noon Central Standard Time, if I am in town here and not touring or traveling, I do live Facebook feeds on my Facebook page, which is just Rachel Kirkland, and we do this question and answer kind of thing for an hour. It's just back and forth, which is awesome. And during that time, I did mention that it's kind of part of my personal story was, I'll just jump into it. It's a story. I guess it's storytelling day today. Part of the question and answer. Sit down for a story. Here we go. So when I was a child, I used to get premonitions every day, all the time. That's how the world worked to me. That's how I saw the world in my mind. I saw it happen and then it would happen. I saw it happen and then it would happen, just like in my imagination or something. And I thought everybody was like that because I had no idea that other people's brain, I just thought that was normal. I had no idea what happened in other people's brains, so I didn't know that mine was any different. I didn't talk about it unless something bad was going to happen. And then I would tell someone, like, don't do that. You're going to get hurt. But most of the time, because I was this little 4 or 5-year-old, kid telling people what to do, they didn't listen and they got hurt anyways. So because of that, I started to energetically block my psychic gifts, okay? I do share this story often because it's so common of an experience, I feel like, with those of us that as a child or younger receive psychic communication. And it may not be just that way. It could be, connections with aliens and then getting freaked out and trying to stuff it and hide it and, not knowing what to do with, or being able to see loved ones who'd passed away. It may be all sorts of things, remembering your past lives, whatever it may be. A lot of times as a child, we don't have a language for that, or we don't have an understanding. I used to tell people that it was deja vu because that's the only word that I had ever heard that kind of sounded like what was going on in my mind. I didn't know what a premonition was. I didn't know what, clairvoyance was. And so I used to just say, oh, I just got deja vu. I just got deja vu. But it would be like all the time. And usually it was nothing, big. It would just be like my brother doing his homework or something. But I would see it. And anyways, so I was blocking that energy for a long time. I started to resent that I was receiving these visuals and they weren't helping people. Now, I was doing this unconsciously. It was very unconscious. I wasn't like old enough to really have some sort of metacognition. It wasn't like I was processing my cognitive development at that time. I was just stuffing it, basically. I would see these things, and a lot of times I would not say anything, or I would hold back, or it got to the point to where I would just kind of hold that energy inside. Or even in an unconscious way, being frustrated is a sense of communicating telepathically to spirit that I didn't want to receive those messages, that they weren't welcome. So I was putting up an energetic block. Now, because most of our psychic energy is stored in the area of our third eye, our pineal gland, this center here of the brain, A lot of in the inner ear is used in terms of frequency and vibration. If you're listening to things, you're clairaudient and listening, having telepathic communication, if you're receiving it that way, and there's a lot of inner ear interaction also. Because I was stuffing a lot of that energy, I got headaches a lot. I got nosebleeds all the time. My physical body was very reactant to not letting that energy flow. Now, as I've gotten older and kind of channeled with my guides and my higher self about this, I've kind of understood it a little better in the fact that they've said that my physical body is very integrated with my light body. Not all people have physical bodies that are so capable of assimilating the light body or the energetic body. Sometimes they're not that blended. And there's that's not like, ooh, I'm better than you, I'm more blended. It's just a physiological thing. Some certain bodies have a little bit more frictional resonance to them in their material makeup and their neurological makeup and all of this stuff. But my body is very reactant. So whatever happens in the spiritual realm happens in the physical realm a lot in my body. And I mean, like, it manifests. It happens. That can be good. I've talked about this before, because then when you're in a positive state, you're manifesting positive, you're healing like this. Can also be a form of detriment, because when you're blocking things, you literally will get physical blockages. So I had so much energy pent up in this area of not letting, I stopped getting those premonitions after a while, because I basically said, I was frustrated about it and was saying internally, I don't want this. I don't want this. And a lot of people do that when they get psychic gifts, or they feel overwhelmed by their, being an empath or whatever it may be, particularly if it's when you're young. So by blocking it, wasn't particularly positive for me. And when I was 14 or 15 in high school, but I don't think I was driving yet. But anyways, I had some stressful things going on, just regular stress, finals. I think it was during the time of finals or something. I literally that stress kind of used it as a trigger, and my inner ear had a stroke, and that pressure basically like burst from my inner ear out, and I had Bell's palsy from that. So if you're not familiar with Bell's palsy, it's like where all the muscles, you have a stroke and your muscles freeze, just like a stroke. And so I don't remember, I'd have to look back at my pictures. One side of my face like didn't work. Like the muscles didn't work. I couldn't blink. I couldn't move the mouth muscles. None of this, I couldn't smile, none of one of the sides. I still have some residue of it, but I'd have to like really, maybe it was this side, because I don't know. I don't know. I feel like a puppet, like, eh. But because of that, because of holding that energy back. And at the time, I didn't know that's what that was. This has been a lot of processing later with spirit about what in the heck happened as a child and this kind of thing. And so I had to go through therapy. I had to go put on steroids. I had to wear an eye patch. I had to go through all the stuff that normal Bell palsy people go through in terms of healing. And it's very uncommon for teenagers to get Bell's palsy. A lot of things that I went through medically, every time I would go to the doctor, they'd be like, this is so not common. This never happens. I'm like, really? Because it seems to happen to me. But I think any of you that are familiar with this type of thing, sometimes the bodies are not normal. Our bodies don't always react in a normal fashion. Yeah. Try and think of any. I still was not necessarily processing and letting in the psychic energy even after that. You think, but it didn't dawn on me that that's what I was doing, because I was doing it very subconsciously. The blocking of that energy. And so it wasn't until I got older and I started wanting to utilize my gifts more actively and kind of pursue this path and open back up and I started pursuing it just more proactively about how do I open back up. I knew I used to get premonitions. How do I get them again? And a lot of people ask me this stuff. They go through the same exact type of scenario where they're like, how do I unblock? So for me, I asked Spirit that, how do I unblock? And Spirit said, hypnosis. So that was effective for me. I don't know that that's necessarily effective for every single physical body in the way that they assimilate energy. But for my particular body, it was effective. Other common things that I used to get, besides like nosebleeds, the headaches, and the extreme like stroke in the inner ear, I used to also get vertigo really bad, particularly in spiritual environments. For some reason, spiritual environments, churches, I don't know. I used to get it. I would get vertigo. And I mean, not just like, ooh, I'm dizzy. I mean, like, I'm dizzy. I'm going to throw up. Like, right then and there. Like, I can remember when I taught at a private school, there would be times when I would be, like, teaching, and it was a church-affiliated school, and I would be teaching, and I'd be like, ooh, and I'm just it's like I couldn't, my equilibrium spiritually was being thrown off, and then it would manifest physically with my body feeling very off. That was a common one. Let me think of some other ones. I can't think of them right now, but anyhow, if I've talked about that. Okay, I've answered her question now. But if there's anything, later I also went through a period where I unblocked. Like I said, I went through hypnosis. I've also shared that story where, while under, I brought in Jesus. I went through a time of kind of healing from a past life trauma where I felt like I was killed for a lot of my psychic gifts, and so there was a sense of me having to release that fear. I think that is also very relevant for a lot of people who have been persecuted for many, thousands of years. We've been like, a lot of our spiritual connections have been repressed or oppressed in physical ways. People, they cut out your tongue, or they hanged you, or they burned you at the stake, or they whatever. There was a lot of that. So I think it's pretty common within the psychic community of those that feel drawn to connect spiritually, to have a sense of, wait a second, something's off. I need to let go of some things. There's some fear here that's restricting me from connecting even further and higher. And that came up during that hypnosis session. And during that time, I released what looked to me like a big blue energetic ball, which in physicality was like this huge mucus ball, like a hairball. I call it a hairball from a cat because it kind of looked like that to me, that I like threw up on the table. And so there's physicality to these things. Like, as much as they are energetic blockages, there's an aspect that, at least in my body, materializes and becomes very real. So if you are in my situation, I would encourage you, or the situation I was when I was younger. Again, I feel like this example is good because it does connect to a lot of people's personal experience. Even though they look different, or your gifts may be different, or the way you're blocking it and where you're blocking it may be different. That process of recognizing that your physical body is telling you and having a reaction to your spiritual, etheric, auric body, and then trying to get those two in alignment to meet and to have a sense of working together and not working against each other in friction. So that whole thing, I would just encourage you, if you are feeling out of alignment with your physical body and your spiritual body, to either, you can go to someone like me, or you can sit and channel yourself, sit and write about it, sit and connect with spirit and ask, like, how do I unblock these blockages? If there's particular ways, there are people, shamans, or, energy workers that focus on unblocking blocks within the energy fields. Angelic beings that love to help with this. There are, like I said, hypnosis. There's all sorts of ways to work through this type of thing. And it typically will involve emotional, like trauma from my past life where I was having all that fear and storing it. Then the physical material aspect within the body of how it's presenting itself in the body, and then that spiritual aspect, the metaphysical aspect of your psychic gifts and connections energetically being opened. And all of a sudden you start remembering all your past lives, or all of a sudden you start hearing telepathic communication once those channels are open. I love you guys. I hope that was encouraging to you. I don't want to incite fear. There's nothing to fear. But I just want to encourage you in your path. Okay? All my love. Blessings.